these women in pantaloons? What happened to your petticoats? You are showing some skin, ma'am. Excuse me. You haven't seen my husband then?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've forgotten my manners. My name is Martha McGregor. Good morning. Good morning, folks. And as usual, I am looking for my husband, John McGregor.
Oh.
He is never around when he is supposed to be. So I am looking and I am not seeing him, but so I guess I should tell you a little bit about us. We are settlers, early settlers of this area.
As I was telling you, if you come down to the mill, I
There
think we
you...
can... Oh, hello, Martha. Well, thank you. It was very nice to meet you. Probably see you later. I was just talking to this young miss,
Yes.
and you know I'm a miller, right? That's important.
I was starting to tell them. But
Well, I was just telling that young miss she's got some grain to the ground and some wood lot as well.
yes.
So I told her I could grind her grain and strip her bark better than any other miller in town. I think she misunderstood. Or maybe she understood. I'm not sure. Anyways.
Well, I know they are very strangely garbed.
Well, they are. I've never seen so many ankles. And since I went to that place before, I would have had all those girls.
Mr.
Oh,
McGregor.
sorry. I forgot. I wasn't no. Good day to you, sir. Are you lost? Oh, good. You know who he reminds me of? Duncan, our
Yes,
son
he
Duncan.
does. Yes, he does. Although the shoes, my goodness.
You've got some kind of disease on your shoes there, so we'll get rid of that. I've got some stuff back in the mill I can put on that.
Yes.
It's probably poison ivy.
Well, perhaps, yes. Well, I was
Well,
starting
anyway.
to tell them about us. So yes, my husband is John McGregor, and he is a miller, and we live at the Forks.
I remember the farm.
I'm a member, yes, and the Justice of the Peace. A very fine, upstanding citizen. Folks don't really know what he's like. I think that's what. Well, actually, the reason why he's member of Parliament is because, of course, he had more whiskey than the other candidate.
Isn't that how you run your elections?
Of course, ladies, you know that we do not have to vote.
Much better
It's
idea.
simply the men who vote, and they go, and it's a 3-day thing, and they drink, and they put their hand up, etc. Yes. But I digress.
You must be here because you want to know a little bit more about the famous battle that happened here.
Yeah.
Just nod your head anytime I ask you a question like that. Just nod your head. That's what I'm trying to get Martha to do. She doesn't phone. Don't want. But anyway, we're standing on pretty hollow ground here. This is at the rear end of the battle. I want to why don't we turn around and look that way? Because all the action that happened on October 5th, 1813 happened in that direction. We're sort of at the tail end of the battle. And we don't have the kind of time to tell you exactly all the things that led up to this horrific day in October of 18 and 13. But it did begin in the Battle of Lake Erie. The British lost the Battle of Lake Erie. And because of that, Fort Malden and Amherstburg. Have you been there?
We're going.
Are you going there sometime?
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Oh, it is a wonderful place on the river. Oh, today it would be a beautiful day to see it. But it wasn't so beautiful in October when the Battle of the Thames was lost to the Americans.
Especially with that man, Proctor.
Oh, Proctor, yes. Proctor was the British general. And he decided, and by the way, the Battle of Lake Erie, just one little point. That was the only time in British history where an entire British fleet had been captured in the Battle of Lake Erie.
And of course, Oliver Hazard Perry, who was the American commandant, he sent a letter to William Henry Harrison, who was the land general in the area, and he said, "We have met the enemy, and they are ours."
One of the most famous myths in military history. We have met the enemy, and they are ours. So once that happened, Proctor felt, well, look, we're going to get cut off because the Americans are going to come up the lake now that they control Lake Erie, and they're going to come across maybe here, maybe down a little bit further, and they're going to cut us off from Burlington.
And did he care that we were going to be cut off?
He did
No,
not.
he left us like lambs to the slaughter for the Americans.
As well as, of course, the natives. There were 10,000 natives on Bois Blanc. I think, did you call it Bois Blanc?
Bois Blanc.
There used to be in your time period an amusement park there called Blah Blah. Now, I believe in your time it's called Blah Blah. And that natives were camped, Tecumseh, and their women and children and elders. Well, Tecumseh wanted to stay there and fight, but most of the guns from the fort had been put on the ships because, I'm sure it's different in your time, we could not get the supplies we needed from Fort York, from, I guess you call it, Trump. Yeah. But we couldn't get the supplies
From the government.
They-
The
you know, we
government
were-
was not forthcoming.
We were at the tail end of the supply, so we've been asking for cannon. They had been asking for cannon to fortify the fort, but it never came. So we had to take the ships. We had to take the cannon from the fort and put them on the ships. So once they were defeated, we lost all the cannon.
I still vote Proctor, though.
I think
he
they
was
should
so concerned. So what did Proctor do? Well, first of all, he didn't tell the natives that he was dismantling the fort. He didn't tell them that he was leaving Fort Amherstburg. No, he let them discover for themselves. And poor Tecumseh, I do feel for him because he was a leader of the natives simply on the strength of his personality. So they get left behind, and they're stuck at Trudell's, a farm close to the mouth of the Thames for a few days. Finally, Proctor's not anywhere to be seen. Finally, after a few days, someone says the Americans have been sighted, and so they move anyway. And when Proctor finds out, he castigates Warburton, the second in command, but he takes him to Dawson's, which in our day was the main settlement, not the fort, not Chatham. Just downstream of Chatham, about 4 miles downstream. And he leaves them there. And once again, he doesn't allow Warburton the ability to make his own decisions, and he just tells them, stay there. And so they do until someone says, the Americans have been sighted, and this time it's for real. So they leave. And Tecumseh himself, when he reaches the forts, he finds nothing has been done to prepare for battle. You know those 10,000 natives that were there at the beginning of the retreat? Well, by the time they get here to this battlefield, there are 500 of them. 500. That's how many, and most of them, many of them, at least half of them who were still there, leave when they find out that nothing had been done to prepare for battle. So by October the 5th, 1813. Now keep in mind, from September the 10th, when the battle of Lake Erie happened, through to October the 5th, it started raining and it didn't stop. It rained and it rained and it rained. Now also keep in mind, there were no highways like this, and there were no fields like this. It was very heavily treed. The settlers had been working away, like us, but had only been around for about 20 years. So they hadn't done that much work. It was tough going. And so on October the 5th, and the other thing is that by the time the soldiers get here, they have had really nothing to eat for a few days, not very much. So they are very disheartened, extremely disheartened. And Proctor is nowhere to be seen. He's here and he's there, and they know things are going badly. And the natives are disappearing. They relied on the natives to be their support, and they know they're disappearing too. So late in the afternoon on October the 5th, when the British are standing, do you want to talk about where they were?
Yes, and Martha talking about it. You all had breakfast this morning and take a break. Well, for the last 2 days, when they get to Dawson's, the British, they get up in the morning, they're about ready to eat. They've got ovens there at Dawson's, and they said the Americans are coming, so they must pack up and leave. No breakfast. Just what they could grab. They get here to Sherman's, just on the other side of present-day Thamesville, and they're just about to eat breakfast, and the word comes that the Americans are coming, so they can't have breakfast. So they get down here early in the morning, and this was swamp on the right-hand side of that road, Longwood Road, and the British were on this side. The natives took the swamp side. They like to fight in brush and bramble and form abattis. So so that they could fire. Well, of course, the British would march in line, which the natives thought was absolutely crazy.
Red coats and
Wearing
red
red jackets and marching in a straight line. But there's very good reason for that, because with a musket, either the Americans had Charlevilles and the British had Brown Besses. When you fire the muskets, you never know where that musket ball is going to go, because they weren't rifled. And you understand that's a key development in military history. When you rifle, put grooves in the barrel, then it goes straight. So I might be shooting a poor Ruth over there with my musket, and I hit Pat. Because when the ball comes out of the musket of my Brown Bess, if I'm British, it's going doom, 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 choo. Not at Ruth. So if we're standing side by side and marching, we've got a better chance of shooting the enemy.
That's why they say don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes.
But even then you would.
Even then, exactly.
No,
Exactly.
So anyways, they're up early in the morning, but the Americans
They
don't
were all
get
drunk,
here
so they
till
were
2 o'clock in the
red-eyed.
afternoon, and they haven't had anything to eat.
And they're standing in the
It's
rain.
been raining for days, as Martha said. So the natives are over on that side. The British are here. They left Malden or Amherstburg with 23 cannon. You know how many they had when they got here? 1. You know how many shots that cannon fired? None. Because they had them, when the Americans finally did come and they were ready, they had the cannon primed and ready to fire. Well, the Americans fire a volley, and it scares the horse that's attached to the cannon. He runs off with the cannon. I mean, if it wasn't so tragic, the whole battle would be, as in from your time period, a Monty Python skit.
Well, the British, the battle with the British lasted about 5 minutes. 10 minutes.
They
so.
fired 1 volley, maybe 2, and then the Americans charged through the line, and then the British just dropped their muskets.
Well,
And
many of them skedaddled.
And many of them took off. And the Americans didn't know what to do. So they rushed through, they expected to have a fight, and they're surrounding the British soldiers, and they've got their muskets, but they don't want to fire because the British have dropped most of their armaments or ran, and so they're looking around. Well, what do we do? Well, a British sergeant comes forward to the American lieutenant and says, well, sir, I think what you should do is ask us to throw down all of our weapons and get in a circle. Good idea. Everybody, throw down your weapons, get into a circle. So the Americans were completely amazed at what had happened. Now, over here is a totally different story.
Now, you also do need to understand the Americans actually, they were infantry, but they were not the first in. Who came first were these mounted infantry, the Kentuckians. And the Kentuckians were wicked. Savage people. And they hated the Indians. They hated them.
They had rifles too.
Some
they
of
had
them
rifles.
did, exactly. Yes.
And they have been shooting since they were 4 years old.
Yes.
They would have been an expert marksman by the time they were your age.
So before the battle, they asked for volunteers for the Forlorn Hope. And a Forlorn Hope is a group of men who volunteer to go in first and take the shots, which of course is very dangerous. And then while everyone is trying to reload, then the rest of them come in and can overtake the enemy. So they asked for volunteers, and what, they have 50 some?
Yeah, it's basically the Forlorn Hope charge. It's basically a suicide.
Yeah.
Because the natives are going to fire or throw their tomahawks or whatever. But being Kentuckians, there's 50, take me, I want to die today, take me. So they charged
And in fact, actually,
the natives.
many of them their bodies are still on that.
Yes,
They're
still on the battlefield. So a good portion of the American casualties resulted from that Forlorn Hope. Now the natives kept on fighting for about 45 minutes. Now, this set the scene. Maybe you've lost track of the numbers, or maybe we never told you. So we've got about 3,500 American with Kentucky. They've got some cannon, but they've got the cavalry, and as I said, that's the Kentuckians. And then here we've got maybe 500 British, maybe, it's so hard to tell with the natives.
Maybe 500.
Maybe 500, maybe
Best
a bit
estimate
more.
says 500.
So we've got 3,500 versus 1,000. So it's not going to last long. But the natives fought on for 45 minutes. Sometime during that 45 minutes, Chief Tecumseh was killed. By who? Your guess is as good as mine. Some
There's
say
24 different versions.
some say
or
it was
claimants, I should say.
Whitley, William Whitley, who was one of the most wicked Kentuckians, Indian fighters, and he's out there. He's buried out there. They never bothered taking him out. I can understand that. Could have been this Richard Green, a young 19-year-old boy who maybe picked up Whitley's musket, which was double loaded, and fired at Tecumseh and killed him. Maybe. Or, of course, Richard Mentor Johnson is the one who's usually considered to be the killer of Tecumseh. Now, he never said it at the time, but when he was running for vice president, he said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, I'm the one that killed Tecumseh." Yeah. So,
Rumsey Dumpsey, Colonel Johnson killed Tecumseh.
so now from this, I've got a diary here. I'm sorry. I'll give you. I'm 200 years old, so I'm bound to have some memory lapses. Don't you think, young man?
I think it's the drinking.
It may or maybe no. So that's the only thing keeps my memory. I remember where my bottle is. So the British, 18 killed, 25 wounded. The natives, 33 ? Killed. U.S. forces, 15 killed, mostly by the natives, and 30 wounded. So that's what happened. Now I want to tell you what happened afterwards, because if you were at the Battle of the Thames, you wanted to be at the Battle of the Thames if you wanted to make something for yourself later on. This is what happened to the people who were at the Battle of the Thames on the American side. It wasn't so good for the British. One became president of the United States. Harrison. Harrison has a record for something. You know what his record is for that no U.S. president has surpassed?
Shortest term.
Very
Right.
good. You're a sharp.
And he's still
I'm glad I didn't shoot you. Shortest presidency.
and longest inauguration address.
On a cold winter's morning in Washington, he caught pneumonia and died a month later. Let me tell you, there was some celebrating down at the mill that night. One became vice president, Richard Mentor Johnson, largely based on the fact that he killed Tecumseh. 2 governors, 4 lieutenant governors, 4 senators, 20 members of the House of Representatives, and dozens of mayors, judges, and other civic leaders.
And thousands of them dined out on the stories that they told about the Battle of the Thames for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
So if you were, or maybe even if you weren't at the Battle of the Thames, you said you were at the Battle of the Thames. If you wanted to be mayor, or especially if you wanted to be U.S. vice president, you said, "I killed Tecumseh." So it was a good line, and you know, I can't imagine people would do that in your time here.
Well, Mr. McGregor, I do believe these folks have a very full day, so I think we
You don't want to spend the whole day with you and I, Mark?
I guess not.
How much whiskey you got?
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's all right. I could probably
How
keep
much
the bed
whiskey?
entertained for everybody. Well, it was very pleasant. Do you have any questions of Martha and I?
We think you're fantastic.
Oh, well, you're talking to me, aren't you? Oh, Martha too? Oh, well, that had some
Well, I think Martha should keep an eye on you.
Oh, I do. I do
She
my
tries
best.
to. She tries
do
to,
my best.
Dan, but it's impossible.
I do.
Any questions that you have about us or
I had picked up the brochure. These are the Gilberts, alias the what are we at?
McGregors? Pay attention, we forgot things.
They have all kinds of wonderful educational things that they do for adults, and even evening ones. I'd love to do one of those with you.
We do ghost. We're doing a ghost walk tonight, in
walk.
fact, and
That'd
then
be
we do a
great.
cemetery stroll in the fall, which you should come down for.
Yeah.
We do it in Maple Leaf Cemetery. We do it 4 nights, 2 weekends before Halloween, and what we do is we meet historical characters from Chatham-Kent past beside their grave. And this year is a special year because in 1914 they opened the mausoleum and they put in a time capsule in one of the crypts. So we're going to open the crypt and
Yes,
reveal
and we
what's
always
in
have
the
the mausoleum
time
open, lit by candlelight.
capsule. The 2 weekends before Halloween. If you've got my email, somebody.
Their
Two weekends
brochure.
before Halloween.
You know
Starts
that
the weekend after there. Oh, where? At the Maple Leaf Cemetery.